Hello everybody, today I'm going to talk to you about how to turn your Windows 8 tablet into a handheld gaming device, and we'll go through such things as controls, emulating gamepads, mice and keyboard. Also we're going to look at graphics settings, performance, battery life of your Windows 8 device. So some of you may have seen my video where I'm showing how to use Dell 8 Pro, which is also a Windows 8 tablet, but here I decided to go a little bit further because I've been getting some comments and questions about how to use Xbox 360 emulator and how to use Joy2Key, and also I got myself a new device, which is this time Microsoft Surface Pro 2, and I'm going to show you how it works with the Ipega 9023 controller. Okay, so the first step is to mount the tablet. As you can see, it is, well, quite bulky, this Surface Pro 2, but it can still fit this controller if you just, stretch it to the max. So the first step is, after you have done that, is to pair your device. So Ipega 9023 is quite a weird device because it's so multifunctional, but the functions don't always work as they are supposed to. Okay, so here is how to pair it. First of all, you go to Bluetooth, you add new device, and you should be holding your menu button and X button at the same time, because this device has different modes, and you may make a mistake, and this will be a big mistake, if you press another button or if you don't press X and menu and continue holding them at the same time, because it may be registered as a keyboard, and as a result you will not be able to use it as a gamepad, which it is. So mind you, the icon will still be looking as a keyboard, but in order to check that you haven't made any mistakes, you should try pressing some buttons, moving the sticks, and if they do not register as some random keyword input, such as, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, and some random letters and numbers and so on and so forth, it means that we have configured the device properly. So it is identified as a gamepad and it doesn't give you any random keyboard input. In order to use your gamepad as a keyboard and mouse substitute, you actually need a program called Joy2Key. It's a very good program. It's free to download, but you should buy it if you like it. So what it does is actually mapping different mouse and keyboard commands to your buttons and analog sticks and whatever you have. So here's how to set up this great program. First of all, we select what we actually need. We select our gamepad, and then we check that it's actually working, so the program does recognize it properly. Some people, and myself included actually some time ago, reported to me that there was a problem with double identification of this gamepad, but it doesn't actually matter, because sometimes it will identify as two gamepads at once and you will be using the second one, and well, actually it's usually not a problem at all. So here's how you map it. As you can see, we're talking about the left stick here, and for the left stick I'm going to use WASD buttons. You can create different profiles here, and the first profile that I make for myself, I usually call it a universal profile. It's a global profile, which is good for, I would say, maybe 95% 95% of all games, maybe 90% of games that support this kind of input method. Obviously it does work perfectly with 3D shooters, with classic 3D shooters, even those that were not supposed to be running on a gamepad. Then the second thing I do is I map up, down, left and right keys to the D-pad, so it allows for some alternative control methods sometimes for different arcade games maybe, and also it is, you know, a substitute for different buttons that can be used to maybe switch weapons and do many other things. In my opinion, the right stick, the second stick, should be mapped as a mouse, and you should be sure to assign -X movement to the left motion, plus X to the right motion, plus Y axis to the up motion, and the down motion should be assigned to -X, obviously. And how you do it is up to you. I prefer to use a little bit of mouse acceleration, even though many people would disagree with me and say that I'm actually crazy for wanting mouse acceleration. But actually it does work for me, because sometimes I use it for menus. It's not necessarily in 3D shooters that I do that. So as a result, we've got working mouse movement. You should actually try and test it for yourself. It depends on the screen size, on the resolution. It depends on what you're used to, but normally it shouldn't be much of a trouble, because in most games obviously you can adjust mouse sensitivity where it does matter. Also, you shouldn't forget that a gamepad analog stick is an analog device per se, and you know, the more you tilt it, the more the mouse cursor will travel. So it can travel very slowly if you just press it like that, or travel much faster if you need it. So personally, I haven't had a lot of problem, even in shooters, even in games that do not support auto aim, and I still played it and managed to beat them. If you don't believe me, just look at my Doom 3 video that I have on my channel. Okay, so here's a very quick jump cut for you. You can see how I mapped the buttons. I have already talked to you about how to map the mouse buttons and the D-pad. So the next step is to map the most important action keys. On a gamepad, these are X, Y, A, B buttons, and on a keyboard in games, obviously these are usually Control, Alt, Shift, Enter, Space, and Tab maybe, so buttons like that. So this is what I decide to use, and the advantage of this system is being able in many cases to at least navigate the menu of a game that you just turn on. And in the best case scenario, you don't even have to change anything, because, for example, if you are playing a simple platformer, you may jump with space or control button and attack with shift, and change your weapons or look at the map using tab. And for tab and enter, once again, I'm using LB and RB buttons. Let's not forget about L3 and R3 buttons, which are the heads of our sticks. They also work here, and I usually assign them as Q and E buttons. So here you can see how the mouse works, this virtual mouse that we have just configured. This is the right button, the left button. Make sure that you do not close Joy2Key, because it only works as long as it's running. And now let's look at another thing that we need. This is a program called Throttlestop. Basically, this is a piece of software that lets you prevent throttling, CPU throttling. As far as I know, it doesn't work with Atom processors, but it does work with many processors such as the Core i5, which the Surface Pro 2 has. And this is really something that you should do at your own risk, so I'm not going to talk about it too much because you may have a different tablet, but here are the settings that I have, and they do work. Now let's talk about controls some more, and we're going to discuss x360ce, which is an Xbox 360 emulator. It works in a slightly different way than Joy2Key. So first of all, what you need to do is to download it. There are two separate versions, 32-bit and 64-bit. And this is really not what you may expect. So if you have a 64-bit operating system, doesn't mean that you need a 64-bit version of the software, because it really depends on the games that you use, and most games, especially the games that you can play on this device, are of course 32-bit executables. Okay, so here is what you do. Okay, first of all, you just launch the executable. You say that it should create a new profile, should create a new Xinput DLL. Then you automatically search for the controller that you have. In my case, I have this Ipega 9023, as we remember. So it will be identified, and you will have a default configuration offered to you. And as you can see, this is perfect. It works perfectly. It has all the same buttons as an Xbox 360 controller. You have the D-pad, you have the sticks, you have the triggers, and everything works perfectly just right from the start. After having configured your device, you click Save, and as a result you get 3 files in a folder, and I suggest that you put this folder somewhere convenient, because you will need these 3 files very often. You will not need to reconfigure this device because the configuration is already saved, but here you have these 3 files, and afterwards, when you want to play a game, you will need to put them into the same folder as the executable. This is very important. Okay, now I'm going to show you how our Joy2Key works. First of all, I'm talking about Xbox 360 controller. We're talking just about this keyboard. So here is the default configuration, or maybe not, actually don't remember exactly. Maybe I have already configured it and it remembers it using the Steam Cloud, but anyway, we have WASD as our movement, buttons, and space as the main action button, which is in our case A. So as you can see, it does work. Now let's continue to the Xbox 360 emulator. Let's look at the game, which is called Sonic the Hedgehog 3 Episode 1. So as you can see, we have selected a gamepad without having copied the DLLs, and we have our controller connected, and now we're just going to take a look at how the game works. So some games do recognize the gamepad, but in many cases it's not a very good option because the buttons are not standard and you will have to fiddle a lot with the settings. This game uses Xinput, and this controller is direct input, which is an entirely different method, and it just doesn't register. As you can see, I'm pressing the buttons and it doesn't work. So our control is not recognized by this game, but what we do here is we take our 3 files from this Xinput folder that I have just told you about, and we copy them into the same place as our executable. So as you can see, now we have the 3 files here. I suggest that you make sure not to delete them, because you will need them a lot when you install new games. Sometimes finding the right path of the executable is a little bit tricky if you're dealing with Steam, for example, but I'm sure you can figure it out. So now, with the Xbox 360 controller emulator, executable and DLLs copied there, let's see what happens. So it automatically recognizes our gamepad. Okay, you can see that I'm using the default configuration. For example, I'm pressing B here, and as you can see on the screen of the tablet, B means back in this case, and A is the default action button. So don't even need to configure anything, don't even need to select anything. Everything works as it is intended. So this is perhaps the best controlling method. There are some games that do not support this method, and primarily, of course, these are the older games that use direct input instead of Xinput. Xinput was actually developed by Microsoft for its Xbox 360, if I'm not mistaken, maybe not even for the first Xbox. No, I think it's not for the original Xbox, but for Xbox 360. So games that were released prior to 2006 and are not, you know, multi-platform games, many of them may not have this option, but if they do, then it does work. Now let's talk about a very important thing, which is resolution scaling. When playing games on your tablet, you might be running games in their non-native resolution, and if you have the default driver, then what happens, or what may happen, is the following. So you see we get a tiny screen without any upscaling, and of course this is unacceptable. This is unacceptable for gaming. So you may want to update your drivers. This is not actually very easy to do, because in order to do that you have to update your drivers manually, and Windows will do everything to prevent you from doing this. But what you should need to do is go to Device Manager, then right click your device, display driver, then you should browse for the drivers that you downloaded. You should download them from the Intel's website, and remember the video adapter here is called Intel HD 4400. So here's how you do it. You download the zip version, you unzip it to some particular place, and then you search for it, press have disk, then locate the file, and it should be in the graphics subfolder. So you just need to choose it, and this will let you have access to the graphics adapter settings. And there are a couple of very important settings. One of them is very simple. This is disabling hotkeys. So in our case, which is gaming, it can be very easy to press Ctrl Alt up, for example, Ctrl Alt right and something like that, and this will lead to rotation of your screen. Of course we don't need that, so we disable this. Then we go to resolution scaling that I mentioned previously. In order to do that, you go to display. As you can see, by default it doesn't upscale the resolution, so what you need to do is choose maintain aspect. This means that widescreen resolutions will be widescreen resolutions, full screen, and non-full screen resolutions, for example, such classic resolutions as 1024 by 786, which is a 4:3 resolution, will be treated as a non-widescreen resolution and will have the black borders, but just on the left and on the right. There is also one more very annoying for me personally feature, and it's dynamic contrast. Now, we aren't talking about adaptive brightness, which is a separate function by itself, can be easily turned off using your Windows menu, not necessarily even control panel. But there is one more thing, which is dynamic contrast without changing your brightness. So I actually would like to demonstrate this to you because I previously turned it off. So if you want to take a look at this, I'm not sure whether you will be able to see this on camera or not. So in order to see it, we'll go to settings. We have battery and power. So I have already disabled this horrible, in my opinion, function. So if we enable it, if we get back to the factory settings, you'll see what is going to happen. So I'll just apply it. Okay, and what should happen? I'll turn the brightness up and maybe turn it down a little bit. You know, the problem is that it is my camera that is changing brightness much more dramatically. But I think you can see it here. Yes, you definitely can. So over 3 or 4 seconds, the brightness, or the contrast, which would be more correct to say, is increasing or decreasing based on the content. So here is one more tweak. This is a more advanced tweak. So you click Start, then Start Search Box, then type gpedit.msc, then you start with Local Group Policy Editor, and then you expand Computer Configuration, then go to Administrative Templates, then System, the Troubleshooting and Diagnostics, and then Windows Resource Exhaustion Detection and Resolution, and then you click Configure Scenario Execution Level, click Properties and Set Disabled. So you need to do this in order to prevent your memory warning from coming up and potentially disturbing your immersive gaming experience. I've had it happen a lot of times, so if you disable it, there will be no problem whatsoever. So there's just one more thing I wanted to say about performance. This is more about battery life. Don't forget that you can have different power schemes, and one of them is Power Saver. And Power Saver is actually very useful, especially for playing older games, because it can extend your battery life, I don't know, by 100%, 150%. But let's look at the game that is very demanding and doesn't even run on older machines. This is Mortal Kombat X or Mortal Kombat 10, whatever we call it. So here we have the lowest settings possible, and the resolution is 800 by 600. As you can see, the frame rate is decent, and even though the settings are set to minimum, this is much better than you can expect. So this ends our small demonstration. So the next thing to look out for is another tablet that would be powerful and not have a resolution which is too high, because the problem is that games don't normally run in very high resolutions, and if they do, then of course they require a lot of processing power, and this processing power cannot be found in tablets. And the problem is that we have faced very, I would say, very fast resolution creep, and what it means is that we're getting higher and higher resolutions without the power to support them, at least for 3D apps, if we're talking about tablets. And as a result, I was forced to buy the Windows tablet, which is Microsoft Surface Pro 2 instead of Surface Pro 3 or 4, because not only do they have much bigger screens, they also have higher resolutions, and this actually is quite a big problem, because tablets are moving away from the 1080p resolution. And so the second thing to look out for, except for a powerful tablet which is not too big and has an acceptable resolution, another thing to look out for is a proper gamepad that can be used as a mount for your tablet. So far, Ipega 9023 is still the only model I have seen, and I did a lot of research on that, really a lot of research. The only thing I saw that got me interested is a Kickstarter project called Grifter, and it has a tablet mount. Basically, this is a device that is supposed to be separated into two parts, basically a gamepad that can be separated into two parts, and it has one accessory which is a tablet mount. So it might be a good thing, but unfortunately, from what I have seen, the development of this thing, just like many Kickstarter projects, unfortunately, basically stopped, and the project is frozen. But maybe there will be some development later on, we'll see. I hope for that. So personally, I just had to buy Ipega 9023 several times, and as you can see in the video that I have just showed to you, I have this very first controller that I bought a year ago and basically played the hell out of it. So this controller got broken. It's not really broken, there is not much mechanical damage, but first of all I lost the rubber cover on one of the sticks. This is the first thing that happened. The second thing is that the stretchable grip got damaged, and as a result it doesn't spring back so that I can mount the tablet and hold it really firmly in place. And one more thing that happened, and it happened unfortunately very fast, very quickly. One of the sticks got a little bit less responsive, so sometimes it does get stuck, but it actually doesn't bother me. So once again, it just shows how little demand there is for portable Windows gaming, and the problem is the market itself, I'm afraid, because millions of people, the majority, the lowest common denominator, these people are happy with something that brings a lot of money without a lot of effort to developers, or maybe even more importantly to the publishers. So as a result, people are happy to sell some very basic stuff or to sell some re-releases many times, instead of giving to us the access to a huge Steam library that already exists. So Humble Bundle, goodoldgames.com, and Steam, they all have huge libraries, and there are even some, you know, abandonware, some older games that do not actually have any kind of commercial license attached to them, or maybe just were made free by the developers and publishers. So there are so many things you can do. So once again, thanks for watching, and happy handheld Windows gaming.